Hey, we're glad you're here today. If you don't know, I'm Dave, and I'm probably as new here as some of you are, so welcome. We're glad you're here, and we've got some exciting things going on that just want to remind you of. Obviously, we've got a ton of great things going on with our kids already, and so soak in all the polar blast you can, because this will be gone Monday. And we'll get to see our brand new stage that Nate and some others worked on hard for us and got that. And we've got our back-to-school blessing next week. And then on August 19th, we get to do what I've really longed for, because I like to teach in series. And so I haven't had that opportunity yet, just with scheduling and everything. And so we're beginning our first series on August 19th called I Am. And I'm really excited about how that's going to launch us forward as a church family. And so whether you're new here or old here or whatever, that's a great series to come and be a part of to figure out where we're moving as a church family. But before we get there, we've got to start with that one thing, right? Because everybody has one. Everybody has that one thing, whether it's a New Year's resolution that's been long forgotten, or it's something you want to try and start up at the beginning of the month or the school year or whatever season of life you're in. Or maybe it's that one thing that's been nagging and you've longed to do but just haven't ever quite been able to get it taken care of, to wrap your mind around it or figure out exactly what it is. But we've all got that one thing. And so it's to help you kind of figure out what I'm talking about. It's that one thing that when you figure it out, when you finally are able to progress through it, your life changes drastically for the better. Maybe it's that one thing that if you finally get a hold of it, that in 6 months, a year, 18 months, life looks completely different for you than it does right now. That it's that one thing that it's not something new. It's probably something that you've already thought about. Something that somebody that loves you and is close to you has suggested to you a number of times. And with that, there's the collective elbow from all the wives in the room. Right? Maybe it's that one thing that you've known about, you've tried it, but every time you try it, you just seem to lose track. You just seem to lose a little focus, and it's not long before you just kind of give up and lose interest in it altogether. But everybody has that one thing. I'll give you some suggestions as we get going here, but probably what's going to happen is as I'm talking, whether I name it specifically, you're going to know what your one thing is. For some of you, your one thing is a habit that you're going to have to break. Whether it's an addiction habit, a sinful habit, or just a bad habit. You've probably got that one thing that you really know it's causing some conflict, it's causing some issue. There's that one thing that you're going to have to break, a habit that you just got to get rid of in order to move forward in life. Or for some of you, it may be a goal that you've got to accomplish. You've got something out ahead of you that you've longed for, you've wanted. You maybe have even attempted it several times, but you just need to finish. It's just kind of been nagging. It's kind of been hanging over your head. Maybe as a weight even. And it's time to accomplish that. It's time to finish that. Or maybe it's just a project you need to complete, right? I've got a list of things that Amanda has asked me to do, and so I've got a number of these, right? Just projects I need to finish. Just get it off my plate, one less thing to worry about, one less thing to add into the stress, the anxiety, the worry. Just finish, just complete that project. Or maybe for some it's relational, right? There's that relationship that you need to restore. There's been some bitterness. There's been some grudges held. There's been years of just build-up. And it's time to restore that, to forgive, to be gracious, to move forward into the next phase of that. Or maybe it's that relationship that just needs to come to an end. Maybe it's unhealthy for you. And you know it's unhealthy. And maybe it's a friendship, maybe it's something more, but you just know that when you're with this person or this group of people, it's just not good. You're not bad people, they're not bad people, but when you're together, just bad things happen. And so it's just a relationship that just needs to end. Or maybe it's a debt that you must retire. And every time we talk about giving at church or you hear Dave Ramsey, you just get this guilty feeling of, I really need to take care of that. I really need to change that. Life would be better for me. Life would be better for my family. Life would be better if I would just get this one debt taken care of. Some of you are going to look at that list and you may say, yeah, 4 or 5 of those. Some, none of these, and it's something completely different. But the truth is, we've all got that one thing. And somewhere over the course of the next 25 minutes or so when I'm talking, you're going to know, if you don't already, exactly what your one thing is. And what my prayer is today, that as we go through this, that we look at this, we're going to look at this great Old Testament story, and as we journey through it and kind of figure out and see some examples, that what you're going to do is you're going to realize that now is the time to change that. Now is the time to handle whatever it is that one thing for you is. Because here's the reality. The God that created you, the God that loves you, He wants better for you. But you can't experience what He has planned until you deal with that one thing that's getting in the way. Until you deal with that one thing that just needs to be completed so that you can move forward into the next stage. So that when we get to this point next year, or when we get to the end of this calendar year, you can look back and say, you know what? Life is just better. Because that one thing's no longer my one thing. Now, that's not to say something else won't fill its place, but at least you won't have that one anymore. And the reality is, some of these things aren't even churchy, right? You know, church problems, right? Listen, it may be health. It may be you need to diet. You need to lose a little weight. You need to go to a doctor, and you need to finally listen to the doctor as they're telling you to do this or to do that. And you say, well, that doesn't have anything to do spiritually. Well, listen, you can't have a spiritual life if you're dead. Right? Think about that. So you need to take care of yourself. You need to do these things. You can't be a generous servant if you're in debt up to your eyeballs. Right? You can't, if you're living outside your means, you can't do what you need to do, what God's going to call and give you opportunity for. And so while some of these things may not feel church or spiritual journey related, they are. Because they become things that get in the way of who God wants you to be and where He wants to take you in life. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the Old Testament story of Nehemiah. And I love Nehemiah. His story is used oftentimes at leadership conferences, and you start talking about how to cast vision and really open people up, get a group of people to buy into something, because Nehemiah did that so well. But there's one line that we'll get to eventually in the story of Nehemiah that for me changed everything. Because when I heard it presented, when I read through it and studied on it, what he says and what he does in the story wasn't just a coffee mug type statement. It wasn't just the New Year's resolution like thing. It was a life perspective. And it's a perspective that I try and remind myself of often, but here's the reality. I forget a lot. And so if I can be really honest with you today, this message isn't for you. This message is for me, right? Because I need to be reminded of it. As I studied through it and I looked over it, this is what I need to remember in this season of my life, all right? So we're going to get to that in a minute, but give you a little backstory of Nehemiah. His story takes place at about 444 BC, and he was a servant of Artaxerxes, and you may not know that name. He was the emperor, the king of Persia, crazy guy, wild guy, and all kinds of craziness going on. Nehemiah was his cup bearer, or you might know that better as a wine taster. Some of you think, oh, that's not a terrible job. I like a little wine with dinner, and so that'd be okay. And then others of you understand what a cup bearer was. They weren't tasting it for quality. They were tasting it for poison. Not exactly the job you want to have, right? Because you only are successful in your job one time. And then you're replaced. Right? But that was Nehemiah's job. He was a slave. He was a servant of Artaxerxes, but he was more than that. He had created a friendship somewhat, as much as you can in that role. He had become somewhat of an official. He was a Jewish guy, but to the best of our knowledge, he had never actually been to Jerusalem. See, because years earlier, King Nebuchadnezzar had come in, the Babylonian Empire, and had taken the Israelites and moved them, and that's where we get stories like Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and things like that. And so here's Nehemiah, and he's a Jewish guy. He longs to be back with his people and have influence there, but here he is serving the king of Persia. He's prayed and he's asked, and he's trying to figure out where God wants him to be, because he's heard of this Jerusalem, but he's also heard about how in shambles it is, how it's kind of the laughing stock, how every group of people in the area are just taking advantage of it because the walls are down and the gates are burned and nothing is secure. And so his people, his heritage is being taken advantage of, and he longs to do something to have impact. But he's a slave, and last time I checked, slaves don't get to ask for time off. But that's exactly what Nehemiah does. After some prayer, after some deliberation, he goes and he asks for some time off, and Artaxerxes responds in a really what we would consider, what the world would consider, an odd way. He not only grants him time off, he says, "I'll make you governor. I'll not just let you go back, I'll send you back with my authority, with backing from me, under one condition. You've got to come back. You can go, you can do what you need to do, but you've got to come back because you're too important to what I'm trying to do and to Persia and what we're trying to accomplish. And so you can go, take care of your business, but you've got to come back. You've got to come and be a part of it." And so Nehemiah gets there and he goes and he begins to just look around the city, and it says he just walked around the city and he was just overwhelmed with how bad things were. He was overwhelmed with how in shambles everything was, how everything was taking advantage of. And so in his position of leadership, he's trying to get a vision. What do I got to do? And really he gets to the point that I want to get you to today with, what's the one thing? Like, I'm not here forever. I've got to eventually go back. So what is the one thing I need to accomplish? What's the one thing? Obviously, the economy's in shambles. Their defenses are in shambles. What's the one thing I've got to do to make the most impact? And he says, I've got to rebuild the wall. Because if I can shore up the wall, if I can get them some protection, then the infrastructure can kind of work itself out. They can begin to rebuild and grow from there. But I have to rebuild the wall. That's the one thing that's preventing them, because they're threatened by... So we pick it up in Nehemiah chapter 6 and verse 1, and it says this. It says, "Now when it was reported to Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem the Arab." Now don't name your children those, right? If you're about to have kids, not that. Where's Katie? Katie, not Sanballat, okay? That's just terrible, right? But these are the guys in the area that Nehemiah shows up in, and Nehemiah wants to make change, and these guys aren't really excited about the change. And so when they hear about it, when word gets back to them and to the rest of our enemies that I rebuilt the wall and that no breach remained in it, although at that time I had not set up the doors or the gates, then Sanballat the Geshem sent a message to me saying, and he's going to, are you getting this? The guys that are affected by it, the guys that are most affected by the wall being rebuilt, in other words, the guys who can't make money off of the poor defenses anymore. They send him a message. Here's their message. It says, "Come, let us meet together at Sephrim," which is just a Hebrew word for village. So in other words, they're saying, have your people call my people. We'll meet anywhere you want to. Anywhere you want to go out on the plain of Ono, that's where we'll meet you. You just let us know where. We'll meet you there. Right? Because we just want to talk. Let's do lunch. Let's go down to Starbucks under the tree. We'll have some coffee. We'll just talk this out a little bit, right? So anywhere you want to go on the plain of Ono, but they were planning to harm me. Like, Nehemiah doesn't mix words. He knows exactly. They're not calling me out there just to talk. If I go out there, they're going to do me harm. They don't want me to finish this wall, and so if I go and meet them, they're going to kill me. They're going to take me out. They're going to do harm to me in some way. He understood the consequences of what he was doing. He understood the dangers. He understood the threats. But then it says his reply. He said, "So I sent messengers to them saying," and this is the verse that changed everything for me. This is the verse I constantly try and remind myself in new seasons or in seasons when I've lost sight of things that are important. Here's this message. I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Will you read that line with me real quick? I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. One more time. I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. That changed everything. His perspective was the thing I'm doing is of so much importance that I don't dare do anything else. That what I'm about, the business I've chosen, who I'm choosing to do, and what I'm choosing to do is of so much importance that I'm not stopping for anybody. I refuse to come down for the wall. I refuse to stop. And what happens is they go on to say, or he goes on to say, he goes, why should the work stop while I leave it and I come down to you? So the question for us really is twofold. It's, what is that one thing that God's put on your heart that's so important you don't need to stop for anything? But the other side of that is, who are you stopping for? What are you allowing to get in the way of your finishing the project? See, because for some people, it's a call to ministry, it's a call to service, right? I would love to start a charity. I would love to be able to give more, but I can't. So when I win the lottery, that's when I'll give more. Do you know what I've never heard? I've never heard the story start with, I won the lottery, and then I started ministry. I've never heard that version. I've heard a lot of reasons to start ministry, never because I won the lottery, right? See, we all think it's got to be, I've got to wait for this. This has to happen, or this has to happen, or this. And the reality is, if God's put it on your heart, He'll figure out the details. He'll lead you where you need to go. But what He's asking you is, do you have the focus? Do you have the drive to stay at it, to finish, to accomplish what it is that He's called you to do? Because Nehemiah, his response is, listen, who are you? Who do you think you are that I should come down, I should stop this important thing I'm doing and meet with you? And that didn't set well with them. They didn't like that answer. And so, verse 4, they sent messages back to me 4 times in this manner, and I answered them the same every single time. I'm about a good work, and I cannot come down. I'm doing something great, and it's exactly what I need to be doing, and I refuse to come down. Every time, it's the same message. And here's what's so significant about that for us is because if Nehemiah came down, they'd have killed him. And that work stops. And the wall never gets finished. And history is forever changed. But he refused to stop what he was doing. See, there are things in your life that if not completed, they're going to kill you. Maybe physically. There are things you need to do in your health and in your diet and in your exercise and in what the doctors are telling you that you need to do to be able to preserve life. But there are things that you need to finish in your marriage so it doesn't kill your marriage. Because you know what direction you're going, and if you stop working, if you stop fighting, you know where you'll be in 6 months or a year or 5 years. Men and I just celebrated our 17th wedding anniversary yesterday, and what that means is my wife is a very patient and gracious lady, is what that means. It doesn't mean marriage is easy, though. It means we work hard, and sometimes we get it right, and sometimes we fail miserably. But you know why we celebrated 17 years of marriage? Because at the end of the day, when temptation is there, when frustration is there, when you're to the brink of wanting to quit and give up, we're about a good work, and we will not come down. And that's what we want our kids to see. And that's what we want to model for you. And that's what we want to walk through life with you doing. Not because we've got it all figured out, not because it's hard. But there are things that if we don't complete it, it kills us. There are things in your life financially that if you don't finish, if you don't take care of, It will destroy you financially. You're living so far out of your means, you've got debt that you can't even begin to describe. And if you don't deal with it, it'll kill you. In one way or another, it will destroy the life that you've created, and then it's not worth it anyway. See, there are things in our life that we've got to look at with such passion and focus that says, listen, I will not come down. Parents, parenting is tough, isn't it? Like, the little ones are out, so we can be honest now. Like, when you go to bed tonight or before you go to bed tonight, sneak in because they're quiet and sweet when they're asleep. And you need to just pray over them. And you need to remind yourself and them, I'm about a good work, and I cannot come down. I've got to keep going even when it's hard. And parents of teenagers in the room, they stay up a whole lot later. So I don't know how you're going to sneak in when they're quiet and asleep. Maybe you have to get up early. I don't know. But you need to do the same thing. You need to hang in there. Even when you're ready to quit. Even when you're ready to wring their necks. Because you're about a good work. And you need to not come down. You need to stay at it. And men, if you're anything like me, and I hope you're better than me, you need to remind yourself of this daily. And yes, there's more business that can be done, and there's more golf that can be played, and there are more trips that can be taken. But listen, you're a husband, and you're a father. And when you look at your wife and you look at your kids, you don't need to look at them as just those things that you have in life. You need to look at them and say, I'm about a good work. And I'm not coming down to climb the ladder of success. I'm not coming down to go on one more trip with the guys. And ladies, when you look at men, I have no idea what you're thinking. I have no idea at all. So I don't know what you say, but you know, because you're smarter than I am. And so look at your husbands, look at and just know you're about a good work. And see it to completion. And continue to invest and continue to lean into that. See, here's the thing. You know what your wall is. I don't have to name it. I don't have to say it specifically. You know what your one thing is. You know what you're responsible for. And what I want to challenge you with today is don't come down. Don't come down from your wall. Because the challenge is to just keep climbing. The challenge is to keep working, to keep building, to keep figuring out, to stay on the wall until it's finished. See, Nehemiah's focus, it never slowed down. He didn't allow any of the distractions outside or inside to take him out because there was plenty of them. There were rumors that were started all around. There were rumors that were started that they hoped would get back to Artaxerxes that said, listen, the reason Nehemiah is building that wall is he's going to make himself king. And he wants a strong, fortified city so that you can't attack him. And you need to bring him home. Nehemiah said, I'm not going to stop. Nehemiah had some of the people closest to him start rumors. Nehemiah, there are people here that don't like what you're doing. They're going to kill you. They will destroy you if you don't stop. Nehemiah didn't change his focus. He said, one, I don't believe you, but even if it's true, I'm doing a good work, and I cannot come down. He didn't allow the rumors or the whispers or the distractions to take him away from what he was trying to do. He was not going to stop. And so you pick it up in verse 15, and it says, so the wall was completed on the 25th of the month of Elul on 52 days. Now that's pretty impressive. Rebuilt the wall in 52 days. When all of the enemies heard of it and all of the nations surrounding it saw it, they lost their confidence, for they recognized that the work had been accomplished with the help of the Lord. But you know what I love most about this story? This is not a supernatural story. There's no miracle in this story. They didn't just wake up one day and God had picked all the rocks up and put them into place for them. Nehemiah stayed focused. Nehemiah rallied a group of people that stayed on task and saw it to completion. And because they did, because they refused to take their eyes off and do anything else, everybody around them was scared because they said, that type of focus, that type of completion, that type of hard work and perseverance can only be from somebody that God is blessing. that God is working with, that God has challenged and given strength to. And so God's handiwork was all involved, but he didn't do anything miraculous. Listen, there are things in your life that can change the course of your life, and you don't need a miracle. You just need to respond to God's faithfulness with faithfulness of your own. You just need to persevere. You need to work through and continue to do. It's hard work. It's discipline. It's leadership, yes, but it's also with the thumbprint of God on you. You're not doing it because you're skilled or because you have strength or because you're doing it because you have a relationship with God and his strength through you and his guidance and his faithfulness allows you to continue to completion. And listen, this would be a great spot just to end and say, okay, you know what your one thing is. Now go home and fix it and let's all have a great day and we'll get out to lunch a little early today. But I'm not that preacher. So I'm going to lean in just a little bit more, step on a few more toes, and press just a little harder. Because that's what Nehemiah did. And that's what God wants for you. God doesn't want you to just hear his message from Nehemiah today and just walk away and say, you know what, that was good. I do. I need to get back to that one thing. See, for some of you, it's a habit that you've got to break. For some of you, there's an addiction. You're an alcoholic. You're addicted to prescriptions. There's something going on there. There's something on your computer. There's something on TV. There's some type of habit or sin that you just need to stop. And you know how you know you need to stop? Because you're already thinking about it. You're already questioning. See, it's not something new. It's something you already know. It's something that somebody's probably suggested to you. And don't email me rationalizations. I understand how you get there because I have people that are addicted in my family. I have friends that struggle. We all have our thing. I know nobody started out hoping to be there, but listen, you're there, and it's probably a habit that it's time to stop because it will destroy life if you don't. There are things that you need to change. There are goals you need to accomplish. There are just some things you need to finish simply because you said you would. There are some of you that need to finish school. Why? Because you said you would. And you just need to do it. And stop fighting mom and dad and stop arguing about this and that. And you just need to go and do what you said you did. Why? Because you said you would. And you become a better person when you do. There are some of you that just need to finish projects at work, that just need to do the things you've committed to doing. Why? Because when you get those out of the way, you've got a lot more time to go where God calls you and do what he calls you to do and serve and be and act the way he calls you to. There are some of you that you know, because when you heard me say at the very beginning, you instantly got uncomfortable. There's some relationships you need to restore. There may be people in this room or people at your house that you need to go home and you need to have some conversations with. And not unload on and not yell at and not, but you need to ask forgiveness. And you need to grant forgiveness. Because there are relationships that need to be restored. But then there are also those relationships that you just need to walk away from. Not because you're tired, not because you don't want to put in the work. Relationships that are unhealthy, relationships that are sinful, relationships that are just flat not what God has designed and wants for you. And you know what they are. I don't have to name every one, and I don't have to. You know because you've known for a long time. But today's the day to say, not coming down until I finish. And I mentioned it earlier, there's some that need to get their finances in order. And listen, this is not a give to church sermon, right? We've already passed the plate. We're not going to bar the doors and pass it again. You can relax. But some of you are living in a way that's destroying your marriage, your relationship with your kids, your life. And it's all done in the name of keeping up with the Joneses, of staying up. Listen, that's easy to do in our neck of the woods, right? But there's some of you that you need to swallow the pride. You need to move in with mom or your wife's mom or your husband's mom, or you just need to find a mom down the street that you can move in with until you can get your finances under control. Because here's the deal. You're not going to be able to keep it up anyway. So why not make those changes on your terms instead of somebody else's? Whatever your one thing is, that's what you got to say today. I'm about a good work, and I cannot calm down. And listen, I've named a bunch of negative, but they're not all negatives either. Right? Sometimes these things are positive things. There's things you know you're to be about, but maybe there's distractions. Maybe there's whispers. Maybe there's people trying to keep you. I've run into that several times just within the last couple of weeks, right? Obviously, my family's made a ton of transition. We've made a ton of choices. It has not all been received well. But you know what I keep reminding myself? I'm about a good work. I am doing what God has called me to do, and I will not come down because it makes somebody uncomfortable, because somebody disagrees, because I don't answer to somebody, I answer to the one that created me. And so I'm doing a good work. And I refuse to come down. And some of you, that's what you need to do. You need to just lean into that vision. You need to lean into that dream. Whatever it is you're wanting to start, whatever it is you're wanting to do, don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity. Just start moving. And let God help you. Let the fingerprints of God show up as you develop and enhance and begin a charity, a ministry, an outreach. Whatever it is, and allow Him to supply what you need. See, again, Nehemiah's story didn't have miracles, but it clearly had the presence and the power of God in it. And if you are a follower of Christ, if you're in relationship with Him, you have that same power and that same presence promised to you in whatever it is you do. See, when you lean into God's direction, when you lean into God's will for your life, you'll never know what God will do. But if you never lean into the will, you'll never know what could have been. If Nehemiah had got down, if Nehemiah had walked away, who knows how God would have rebuilt the wall? Who knows who it would have been and whose story we'd be telling? But it wouldn't have been Nehemiah. So what is it for you? What are you doing that you need to not come down from? And listen, that's the challenge, right? The challenge is not stopping. The challenge is not, hey, I've got this grand idea. Dave was encouraging today. I'm going home and feeling good. Because the truth is, when you walk out the doors, when you stop watching online, nothing else in the world has changed. You're still broke. You still got frustrating relationships. You're still unhealthy. Nothing's changed other than your mindset. So the challenge is to not lose that mindset and not let today just be a day that was like, yeah, I hope so-and-so watched this. I really wish so-and-so was here to hear this. No. It's about you. You've got to choose for yourself. What work are you going to be about? What are you doing that you refuse to come down from? Because here's the thing. You have no idea what hangs in the balance of the work that God's calling you to. Let me pray with you. Heavenly Father, I pray today that you will change our hearts. Yes, you will open our minds, but more than that, you will move our feet. God, that you will help us walk into a world that hasn't changed, but you'll help us walk into it with a new vision, a new sense of power and courage. God, that you will lead us into the future you want for us, both as individuals and as a church family, God. That the things we do will be honoring to you, but the things that we get distracted with or frustrated with, God, don't let those things stop us from finishing what you've started. Because, God, at the end of the day, I don't know anybody that does not want to be part of your story and does not want to do great things with you by their side. So, God, lead us, protect us, encourage us, but give us vision for the task ahead, God. God, we just thank you so much and just want to pray blessings over all those here, God. Those that are hurting and struggling, we don't make light of the addiction or the relationship or the struggle. God, It's real. But give us the courage to step out and ask for help, to make the changes we need to make. God, to rely on your power to change us, but to rely on our family to help us through the day-to-day of it. God, make us your hands, make us your feet as we love and we serve one another. And we pray it all in your Son's name. Amen.